Hi, welcome to Chaotic Casual, Jose. So I just finished beating Pentiment for the PlayStation 5, and the game's just absolutely great. Something that probably not going to forget for a very long time. It's very unique, probably the most unique game I've ever played. I haven't played anything like this. The closest thing I could say I've played this were just like my old school, not old school, like my Fallout type of games. It's made by Obsidian, who made New Vegas. And what I mean by those type of games, it's just like the amount of choice that you have when it comes to dialogue. So basically, it just takes all of that and makes a game like that, revolved around like beautiful art, 15th century art, and just it's basically like it's like a moving painting. And when I initially bought it, I knew it was on my radar for a while, especially since Obsidian made it. I had downloaded it on Game Pass, but I never got around to like playing it. Like it just kind of sat there. And when it was announced, like the Xbox were gonna make PlayStation games, and then I saw it on the PlayStation Store. And I don't usually get games right away when they come out, but I've been trying to do that more lately, especially for the channel. So between the audacity of an Xbox game coming out for PlayStation 5, the game just coming out, it wasn't super expensive. And so I kind of impulse bought it, which at first I kind of regretted because immediately when the game started, I felt like a surge of boredom. I was like, oh shit, what did I do? Right? And then I couldn't even play it right away. I was having my nephew stay over for a couple of days. So I wasn't going to be able to focus on it like I would have wanted to. But I was determined to beat it because I paid for it, and this would have been, if I didn't do that, it would have been like the third or fourth game I bought this year that I kind of just like gave up on like pretty early on. But so I pushed through the very beginning, like the reading, and I kind of wish I didn't do that because there was a certain point in the game where I wasn't pushing through in it. Like I was just having fun. Like I was just engaged in a story. Like there's so many things I could just say about this game, and the crazy thing is, it's like so niche that I don't know who I would recommend it to. Like I don't know anybody in my personal life that would even play it. But so who's it for? Well, if you like a good mystery, like if you're looking for like a detective, he's not a detective, the main character. You kind of decide his background throughout the game. Like, well, not throughout the game. Well, yeah, throughout the game. Like in the beginning, you make some options to, who you were, like who you are and stuff like that, like certain backgrounds, and it'll give you like certain dialogue choices. And then even like in the second act of the game, because it takes place over 3 generations almost, and when you do that, it lets you know, okay, what were you doing from this time, and that also changes kind of like who you are. So this game, there's been games out there that have made me feel like I was living in that world, but like for instance Baldur's Gate, I felt like I was living in that world. Like I wasn't playing a video game, I was just like living a story. And that's what this felt like, except it felt a little bit more personal because it takes place in this town that's like really small, and you get to know these characters and you see them grow older, and their personalities not necessarily change, but they do grow, as people. Some of them for the better, some of them for the worse. So you see these people, and it really feels like you're in that world, and it becomes personal because you kind of grow up with these people in the course of the video game. I think I've spent like 19 hours in the game. So like I said, I can't remember a game that's made me feel that way. After a while, I didn't feel like I was just reading. I was literally just living this fantasy, you know? The art, everything's just beautiful. The music, the 15th century, these felt like real people. It just didn't sound like, it just didn't sound, how to explain this? Like, you ever play like a medieval game or something like that, and you don't necessarily feel like you're in a real world. It's like if you're playing a medieval game, you feel like you're playing a medieval game, and they're talking the way they talk because that's just how the game writers made it. So This, it doesn't feel that way. These feel like these could be really people that if you take any character from there in this game and you put them in a real life settings, like you can picture how like they would be different. You know, like if you took them from the 15th century and just brought them to now, like, okay, this person would still be like this person might be like that, but they'll still be that person. You know, just picture yourself in those times. Like, you'll still be you, but you're also a product of your environment. And there's a lot of that in this game. The Catholic religion, it's influenced heavily into their world. I mean, their lifestyle, their choices, their way of thinking, and it's just, you could tell whoever like specifically wrote this, like this was definitely a passion project. And this game, like unironically, is a work of art. Like, I think video games are an art, but this feels something else. Like, this feels almost like a next level of like reading or some type of and getting a story. You know, there's like video games, there's books, and there's movies, but this feels like something different. This is like an elevation. It's like you're watching a movie, you're reading a book, and you're playing a video game all at once. And I can't think of a single game that does that well. Or just in general. I mean, I'm sure there's games like that that are similar to like that, but just in my personal experience. So, is this game for you? I don't know. I guess that depends on you. You gotta ask yourself some questions. Like, when you see the gameplay and the trailers, does it have an appeal? Do you know you can invest as much time in reading? Because there's a lot of reading. But I promise you, if you're like me, after a while, it doesn't feel like you're reading anymore. You're just living this story that just goes on. There's I also felt stuff like I made some choices like that. Really, did I make the right choice? Like, really thinking about like the things I made, not like as in consequences. Like, did I try? Who am I going to romance? Like Shadowheart or Asterion or something like that. These choices feels like they affect real people, with these real consequences that change the course of this town's history. Can't think of anything else that I felt this way about. You know, like, I've been engaged in movies, I've read books, I've read, watched TV shows, I've played other video games, but this is definitely unique in itself, and I would love to play more things exactly like this, just with a different story, like whether it be a space thing or just like something that took place in a real city. The art, again, like I don't know much about art. I'm not a like art history guy or whatever, but it looks pretty. There's definitely things that I noticed that I had to stop myself and really see in the background and really pay attention to, because I was like, I feel like somebody else would see this and see something else. You get that feeling if you're someone like me who doesn't really know much about like physical art and stuff. There's a lot to learn about the game if you're like someone who just wants to inhale information. The game makes it really easy for you to understand what's going on, because you push a button on the PlayStation controller. Like, if you just hit this little button here, there'll be like a dialogue, and it'll say like, let's say Naples or whatever, and you press a button and it just gives you a little tidbit of what that is. Or they'll bring up like a saint and you'll just hit that button, or even a character that, like, who's that guy again? You can hit that button and it just kind of like, oh yeah, that's that person, right? And then you got a glossary. You kind of it's just, for someone who gets confused really easily with stuff and trying to understand what's going on. Like, when I watched The Expanse, it took me like, I didn't feel like I get what was going on until like the mid-second season, where everything started to like make sense to me. But it didn't take that long for this game to do that. In fact, I don't ever being confused at all. Like, it just helps you retain information so well that, yeah, I don't know. So I think if you can read something like this, and I think this is definitely worth giving a shot. Just look at some gameplay footage. I mean, I'm showing some footage now, but just give it a shot. And if you do, try not to kind of give up on it. Just let it flow. You know what I mean? Just like a good story. Sometimes it takes a minute for it to kind of like go into gear. And this is coming from somebody who just like was just like, nope, I just couldn't get into it. I mean, shit. When I think about, I must have watched The Matrix when it came out, like the beginning, like 10 times before I actually watched the whole movie, and I really enjoyed it because it was a great movie. But when I originally watched it, I just couldn't get into it. And I'm so glad I did, because once I was into it, I was committed. There was like, I knew this was going to be a game I was going to finish. And yeah, just do yourself a favor. But if you don't like reading, and if you don't like these type of narrative games, it doesn't matter what the story's about, you know. There's no story. I would imagine there's no story interesting, because the story itself is amazing. Like, not only is it amazing, like, it's not some epic thing. Okay, what I mean that it's amazing, that it just, what it does makes, like, how it makes you feel a part of that story. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I just need to emphasize that, like, I felt something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm just not good with the way I'm supposed to say it. But, which makes it weird because I'm making a video about it. But, yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta really say. Like, I mean, there weren't really bugs or anything like that. The graphics are, pretty. This is just like my take on the video game itself. So, thank you for watching, and have a good one. Okay?